Better late than never, right? So now that 2021 is officially over and we are now on to 2022, it's time for me to go back and rank my top 10 favorite movies of 2021. And guys, obviously I haven't seen every single movie from this past year. In fact, there's quite a few that I missed that would have a really good chance of being on this list had I seen them. And some of those are Zack Snyder's Justice League, West Side Story, Encanto, Ghostbusters Afterlife, Last Night in Soho, and many more. Just couldn't quite get around to watching those in time for this list. So keep that in mind while I make this. This is obviously just amongst the movies that I've seen this year. And this is a top 10. I'm not going to do any honorable mentions in the sense that movies that just missed my top 10. Instead, there's a few movies that I just want to mention for a few different reasons. First of all, there's 4 movies that came out this year that I did not like. I was expecting them to be something that I would enjoy. I was very much looking forward to them. And they not only disappointed me, but they're movies that I straight up did not like and thought they were bad. Just going to briefly mention those. Those 4 are Halloween Kills, Matrix Resurrections, F9, and House of Gucci. All movies that I was looking forward to very much, thought I might enjoy, and did not whatsoever and didn't like them. So I get into full details on my Letterboxd reviews. Follow me. I'll have the link to that in the description. I talk about at length why I don't really like those movies. So if you want to know the details of that, get into that. I'm not going to do a worst of the year or a most disappointing of the year. There just isn't enough of them. So I just wanted to bring those up real quick. Then aside from that, there's also 3 movies that came out this year that they're not honorable mentions. Again, they're not movies that just missed my top 10, but they're ones that I wasn't expecting much from and came out actually quite enjoying. And those are Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I was not a big fan of the first one, but this one surprised me. I thought it fixed a lot of the issues I had with the first one, with the story and the pacing and the tone and the action, so I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I had a lot of fun with it. Another one is Malignant, which I thought was going to be terrible. I thought the idea was very weird, and then if you would have told me what this movie was before I watched it, I would have told you there's no chance I'll like this movie. It's going to be totally ridiculous, and it was, but it worked. I watched the movie, and I'm like, this is so weird that I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I enjoyed it much more than I expected. The third one is Spiral from the Book of Saw. Didn't expect much from this movie. The Saw franchise has kind of gone off the deep end by now, but I actually quite enjoyed this one. I thought it was quite a good Saw movie. It's a fresh new direction to take the franchise. It's very socially conscious and socially relevant to certain things going on today with some nice twists in there, even though I certainly saw the killer reveal coming, and it's certainly some acting isn't the best. Chris Rock is iffy at times, although he was better than I expected. But I enjoyed the movie and wanted to give a little bit of shout out to that. So without further ado, let's get into my actual top 10. And number 10 is going to be Eternals. I thought this movie did a lot of things right. I don't really understand the hate for it, and I know it's one of the most divisive movies that came out this year. The people that hate it, I don't get it. I don't really understand. I had a great time with this movie. I thought it was a interesting new direction to take the MCU. I love the lore and the new world they introduced us to. I love almost all the characters. I thought they did a great job of introducing them and developing them, fleshing them out, and getting us to care about this big group of characters all in a matter of 2.5 hours. I cared about their relationships. It was emotional as hell. I love the action, and I love the visuals. So much to like about this movie. It certainly is probably a little bit too long. It could have been paced a little bit better, but I very much was satisfied with Eternals. Number 9, one that surprised the hell out of me, is going to be Free Guy. I expected to enjoy this movie. The trailers certainly sold me. It's something that's right up my alley. Ryan Reynolds, a fun, stuck in a video game movie, seems like something I would certainly enjoy. I never expected this movie to be as good as it is, though, and be in my top 10 of the year. It does a lot more than I expected. It certainly has something to say about, working for the man and doing things on your own. It's a nice themes and messages in there. There's kind of 2 different rom-coms going on, and with the real world Jodie Comer and then the video game world Jodie Comer, which were both great. I mean, she was one of my top movie crushes of the year, top character crushes of the year. I talk about those a lot, but I actually preferred her real life version than the video game version, which is supposed to be more like enhanced, kind of how she wants to see herself. So that was interesting how I preferred the real one. Ryan Reynolds is great in the role. I even enjoyed Taika Waititi. He was a perfect over-the-top corporate guy, and I thought he played it very well, and this is kind of how we tend to picture those type of people, and it fit the movie perfectly. I enjoyed the hell out of it. I thought It certainly had a little more to say and a little more going for it than I had expected. Of course, it's predictable. Of course, it's cheesy at times. And there was some fan service that wasn't necessarily necessary, but I definitely enjoyed it for what it was. And Free Guy surprised me with how awesome it was. Number 9. Number 8 is going to be Wrath of Man, another one that really surprised me. Not because I'm not a Guy Ritchie fan. I'm a big Guy Ritchie fan. But this one is so different compared to everything else he's ever done. It's a very dark, gritty, bleak movie. Jason Statham's main character is very cold and calculated and doesn't show a ton of emotion. He certainly has emotions, but he's not a over-the-top kind of goofy, fun character, charismatic like a lot of, Guy Ritchie's main characters, a lot of his characters in general are. But you understand why. And the shit that happens to him that leads to him doing what he's doing in this movie, you understand why he is where he's at. And the way the story plays out, kind of with a non-linear storytelling, revealing certain things as the movie goes along, kind of this mystery unraveling in that way. I very much enjoyed that. And there's some good gunplay in here. I wish there was a little bit more hand-to-hand fighting because that's something that Statham very much excels at. But I also think that the movie is certainly predictable. It's certainly the ending you saw coming from a mile away. It's a typical revenge thriller ending, but goddamn is it satisfying. One of the most satisfying endings of a revenge thriller I've ever seen, and I really dug this movie. Wrath of Man, number 8. Number 7 is the second MCU movie on this list so far, and that's going to be Shang-Chi. I thought this movie was very good. I'm not quite to the same level as some people are calling it like one of the best MCU movies and stuff. My reasoning for that is I thought the third act lost me a little bit. It went too far into the cliche giant CGI battle that all the MCU movies have, and it kind of lost what the rest of the movie was about. That being said, everything else about the movie was pretty damn good. The performances, particularly the main character's dad, who is one of the best villains in the entire MCU, a very well fleshed out character that certainly is doing a lot of bad things and you want to see him be stopped, but you also completely understand where he's coming from and you feel for him. The main character is great. Obviously, there's some great humor in there. There's some awesome action. This has certainly some of the best action in the entire MCU. Great hand-to-hand fighting. I love the action involving the magic with the bracelets that they use. So much cool stuff about this movie, but it could have been higher if it wasn't for the typical CGI third act. Number 6 is going to be Luca. This is a movie that I just watched in time for this list, and I loved it. Luca was awesome. I had a smile on my face from start to finish. It is very much a heartwarming movie. It's a character study about these two kids who are sea monsters but are disguising themselves as humans, and they kind of try to adapt and disguise themselves in the human world and try to fit in. So much great stuff in this movie. The relationship between them is amazing. The relationship between them and the girl is awesome as well. So many great themes and messages throughout the movie. It's very, very funny and entertaining from start to finish. A little bit cliche and predictable, of course, but it's about as good as a movie like this can be. So Luca is my number 6. So cracking my top 5 is going to be Tick, Tick, Boom. Would have never guessed a movie like this would be my top 5 of the year. But Andrew Garfield is phenomenal. He is one of the best working actors today, and he elevates every movie that he's in, no matter how good the material is. And this movie certainly has good material. I love the story that it tells and the character arc that he goes on, where he's trying to write this song, this musical, and he's got a couple days to do it, and it's this big event, and he's got to finish it, and he's also got stuff with his girlfriend and stuff with his friends, so many life obligations, and he's trying to balance all that, and you can feel the pressure of all that. Tick, Tick, Boom is certainly a fitting title because you can feel the ticking clock of him having to do this, but also having to balance all these other things in his life. So that was an interesting story. And then the third act is super emotional. One of the best and most emotional third acts of the entire year. Where the movie falters a little bit and isn't even higher than number 5 is that it certainly takes a little bit to get going story-wise and might lose people at some point in the beginning. And also the music itself is not super memorable for the most part. But aside from that, Garfield's phenomenal. The story is great. And I had a great time with this movie. One of the best third acts of any movie this year. Maybe the best. So Tick, Tick, Boom is my number 5. Number 4 is going to be The Suicide Squad. This movie also surprised the hell out of me. I did not like the original Suicide Squad. I don't hate it as much as most people. I don't think it's an absolute train wreck. I don't think it's garbage. I actually think there's a little bit of enjoyment to get out of it. But it's certainly not a good movie. This one is much better, and James Gunn was the perfect fit for this because this is the exact type of movie that he thrives with. A ragtag group of heroes that we've never heard of before that come together with all their different personalities and different quirks, and they are kind of reluctant to work together, but they do it, and they have nice banter and interactions. So much great stuff to love about this movie. It's kind of like R-rated Guardians of the Galaxy. So funny. I enjoyed this movie from start to finish. So many likable, charismatic, fun characters. I didn't love the direction they took with one of the characters, and there are certain things that were a little bit telegraphed and predictable, but I had an absolute blast with this movie from start to finish. This is the exact type of thing that James Gunn is very good at, and he executed it so well. The Suicide Squad, number 4. Number 3 is In the Heights. This one surprised the hell out of me. If you would have told me before the year 2021 that not only would there be 2 musicals in my top 5 movies of the year, but also the only movie I saw 3 times in 2021 would be a musical, I tell you, you're out of your mind. There's no way that's happening. Yet here we are. I am obsessed with In the Heights. You know when you're a little kid and you get obsessed with these movies and you can't stop watching them over and over, you want to watch them every day? That's what's happening with me within the Heights right now. This hasn't happened in a long time. I just saw it on New Year's, watching on New Year's, and I want to watch it again already. I can't stop listening to the soundtrack, watching scenes from the movie. Such a blast, so much heart, great music. The music is integrated into the story and the characters. All the main ones have their own struggles and their own character arcs and their own personalities, and then they kind of intermingle with each other, and the music reflects that. And it's not just a 2-hour music video. The music has meaning to what's going on in these people's lives, and I'm invested in the story and all their different characters and all the different character arcs. So much fun, so much heart. I can't say enough about this movie. Vanessa is my number 1 movie character crush of the year probably, and I had a lot of them, so that's definitely saying something. In the Heights, such a blast, my number 3. Number 2 is going to be A Quiet Place Part 2. This one was my number 1 for the longest time, and it only got surpassed very recently. I thought it was going to stay my number 1, because that's how great it is. It's every bit as good as the first one. It keeps the tone and the atmosphere and the intensity and the tension that the first one has, but it also expands on it. We learn a little bit more about the backstory of what started this all. It doesn't give us too much. It gives us just enough to have a little bit of an understanding of how this all started, and that's something I certainly wanted after seeing the first movie. We get more of the creatures. We get to see them a little bit more, and this is honestly, the Quiet Place movies have some of the coolest creature designs in any movie ever, and I appreciate that. Super unique and super cool looking. Very scary for sure. The movie is intense from start to finish, just like the first one. Doesn't lose that at all. John Krasinski directs the hell out of it. His character gets kind of, in a way, replaced by Cillian Murphy, but he's not the same character. He's a different guy who has his own struggles and his own character arcs, and he has a great arc throughout this movie that I really appreciated. His performance was great. Millicent Simmons was awesome as well. She steals the show. They give the kids in general more to do. So much great about this movie. It's similar enough to the first one, but it also builds on and expands enough to where you feel like it's not a rehash of it. So Quiet Place Part 2 is number 2. And my number 1 is Spider-Man No Way Home. This was not number 1 the first time I saw it. I think it was number 3 or 4. But after my second watch, it shot up to number 1 because I think after knowing what happens and kind of watching it again, I was fully able to take things in and appreciate the movie on a whole nother level and respect it and like it even more than I did the first time. I certainly don't think it's perfect, but what this movie does right, it does very well. And it makes for such an emotionally satisfying experience and such an entertaining experience. This movie is Tom Holland's easily his best performance in the entire MCU. He goes through a great character arc in this movie. They put him through the ringer. They put him through some shit. And a lot of people have been complaining that this version of Spider-Man hadn't really gotten that. He hadn't gotten the adversity. He hadn't gotten the struggles and the tragedy that the other Spider-Man had that made them Spider-Man. He gets it in this. And it almost makes the MCU Spider-Man trilogy kind of a 3-movie origin story for the MCU's Peter Parker. And I really appreciated that. Certainly the most emotional of the MCU Spider-Man movies. Not even close. Had the highest stakes. Had probably the best action. And then obviously the returning villains were great. Willem Dafoe was phenomenal. He stole the show every scene he was in. But Alfred Molina was great as well. Jamie Foxx was awesome as Electro. Way better in this than he was in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I feel like the movie's been out for long enough that I'm going to spoil a few things, but I'm going to hold my hand up while I'm doing it just to make sure. So 3, 2, 1. Tobey and Andrew are in the movie, and they're absolutely great. They are probably, I think all three Spider-Men give their best performance as the character, especially Andrew Garfield. He steals the show in this movie. He's great. The emotion that he shows with the stuff with Gwen and then saving MJ. So many great moments, so many great interactions between the three Spider-Men. That's probably my favorite part of the movie, is the interactions between them. So many great serious interactions that where they teach Peter, our Peter, Tom Holland's Peter, some great lessons about, reminding him why he's Spider-Man, why he does this, and what it is they do. And then some awesome, funny interactions as well, like the web stuff and the back-cracking. So much to love about this movie. The ending was sad, but also satisfying and makes total sense. And then the very ending with where Peter is going. So much great stuff about this movie, and I can't sing its praises enough, even though, again, I certainly have a few issues with it, with the inciting incident and the Doctor Strange stuff and how nonchalant he was about everything in the spell. But ultimately, no movie gave me the experience that this movie did this year. No movie hit me in 2021 like Spider-Man No Way Home did. And it was just such a satisfying experience and fulfilling experience. And that's why No Way Home is my number one. So there you have it, guys. That is my top 10 favorite movies of 2021. Have you seen all those? How would you rank your top 10 movies? What do you disagree with me on? What do you agree with me on? Drop a comment below. Let's start a conversation. I'm going to drop my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2022. Possibly a bonus video. That might be... I don't think I'm going to drop that. I might just film it for fun. I hinted a little bit in this video what that might be, but I don't think that's actually going to happen. So I guess, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're notified when I post a video. If you enjoy this video, hit the like button. Likes very much help YouTube channels, so please do that if you like the video. Drop a comment, say your top 10, what do you agree with me and disagree with me on, and I got some stuff coming, so I'll see you guys soon.